Good morning, everyone. I'd like to greet those of you who are joining us today for our online lecture, provided due to the well-known coronavirus infection on online basis. I would like to mention that online education has own advantages and disadvantages, and one of the advantages of online education is that here we able to pass all our knowledge without eye contact, and also by having our auditorium in a more wider spectrum. So different people may join us and listen our online lectures, and I welcome everyone who has waked up early this morning, especially our students who has to stay at home these days. According to our teaching curriculum, we are presenting to you our next lecture, number 3, which is covering the subject of protected ground vegetable production in greenhouses. Our topic today is covering materials for protected ground structures. You know that greenhouse production of vegetables is a heavy part of the olericulture science, which is telling us how to grow different crops in an open field. But in the greenhouses, we are trying to organize microclimate, which will be very useful for the plants, make for them the comfortable weather conditions, also the temperature, heat, moisture, and trying to organize a better life for our plants. Greenhouse production over the centuries was important for the people. The story behind is telling us that even in the 6th century before the Christ, BC, the Roman Emperor Tiberius would ask for having cucumber, fresh cucumber every day. And different growers at that period were trying to grow for the emperor. But, you know, it was a challenging, because at that time no cover materials were created, no glass were available, so people, even with that challenges, were trying to overcome it, and were trying to use animal skins. They were cleaning it from the wool and also working it out and soaking it in the oil, olive oil, and using it on the windows in order to let the sunlight go through and give necessary energy to the plants. It was challenging also because they were not able to create the microclimate inside of that protected grounds, and they were in need of taking plants out during the day when there was a better weather outside, and putting them inside during the nights in order to protect from the cold available in the, during the night time. So, but time was going and industry was developing, so that was helping the growers, because the growers' requirements were changing year by year, decades by decades, centuries by centuries, and in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, there are more modern, more developed greenhouses were constructed, because the production of the cover materials were helping fast growing of the industry. You may have a question: why we need cover materials for protected ground structures? Because covering materials is helping us to protect our plants from the outside outside weather conditions, also to help to keep the heat and moisture inside the greenhouse and make useful conditions for the plants to grow. Also, different cover materials is having their own structural features, which is very important for the growers. And if we look at the different kinds of cover materials, they are widely spread all over the world, and there are no exactly important one which is really meeting the needs of the producers, growers, because variety and the kind of cover material, it depends on many different factors. We may count those factors, which are the area where the growers are operating. You know, especially in the northern areas where with a colder climate, they use one kind of cover material. In the areas where they have more sunny days, they use another, because the sun also destroys the cover materials used by the farmers. Our main task while we are selecting the cover materials is to see which of them is better insulation provider, because insulation is very important, because you should remember the total cost of your production, the 50% of your total cost is a heat cost. So if you will select right cover material, you can automatically save on your heating costs. So content of our today's lecture is structural features. We'll talk about structural features and their importance for the selection of the cover materials, types of cover materials available in the market today, and we will look one by one what is the advantage and disadvantage of the cover materials available for growers these days. Also, how to choose the correct cover material for greenhouses. And the last one is the tips for proper light and heat efficiency. You know, after going through each of the cover material, you will see how these tips are affecting the proper lighting and heat efficiency of the greenhouses. This course intended to used by the students of the 3rd grade agronomy faculty, specialization of agronomy. Today we will use some references and literature listed in our slide. You know, materials available, most of the materials with this subject is available, for this topic is available online. You should or download some online books, or you should use some links provided here for your attention. At the same time, this material will be sent out by email and shared via WhatsApp groups to the students of 3rd grade who is studying at the Agrarian University these days. So, if we look at the cover materials, what are major characteristics of cover materials? They should be translucent, they should let the photosynthetic active radiation via the material. Also, they should delay long wave radiation, be strong against outside touches, and also be thermal resistant. The thermal resistance is one of the important features of the cover materials that we should have in mind while selecting the cover materials these days. Nowadays, because of the high development of the industry, different companies worldwide are using materials which used by the growers today. Some of them are well known, like glass, but some of them are newly coming to the market, and this market is continuously growing and developing. New kinds of materials are available on the market today for our growers. If we look at the translucent materials, we should say that their selection is more or less dependent on the structure of the construction structure of our greenhouses. We know that main types of greenhouses available today, block type and hangar type, but they have different forms also, which is gutter connected, line in, etc. So because of the structural features, we need to choose the necessary cover material for our greenhouses. You may have a question, why we need to know these structural features? Because different kinds of materials has their own weight and specification to be used in the areas. If you have very light construction, but you are going to use, let's say, glass, which is heavy material, then your construction can be under the pressure and can be easily destroyed if there much snow goes on. So the construction is important, because if you, for your construction, is using wood as a material, or if you are using the iron as a material, that will more or less affect the selection of your cover materials. Our cover materials today available in the market is mainly divided in two main types. One of them is a glass, and the second is polymeric materials. Each of this group has their own characteristics and widely used these days amongst our growers in Azerbaijan and also worldwide. Of course, some of the stated here in the listed polymeric materials are not available or not widely used these days in Azerbaijan. But some of them are very spread and commonly used amongst our growers in different regions of Azerbaijan. As you can see, here we have some examples of polymeric materials which could be used as a cover material these days. But let us go through one by one and see what are the advantages and disadvantages of different materials. So, glass. The glass greenhouses are well known over the last centuries. Almost close to 3 centuries, glass greenhouses are widely spread around the world. If we look at the glass greenhouses, they look very solid, they look very nice, but they also have their own advantages and disadvantages. So, we should remember that by increasing the layer, the number of panes of glasses, we may better insulate the greenhouse. Today in the market, most of the materials, glass materials, are single pane glass materials with R value of 0.9. I will come later to the issue of R value, why we need this R value, and also double pane glass with R value of 1.5 to 2. And if you look at this first slide with single pane glass, it's much lighter than double pane glass, of course, but the disadvantage of this single pane glass is that it is not strong enough. It can be easily broken. And another issue is that you cannot have the bigger sheets of glasses to be used for the greenhouses. Especially if we look at the R value of single pane glass, which is 0.9, and compare it with the R value of double pane glass, we can see that it's almost double the R value. The R value measures the effectiveness of insulation, and the higher number represents how effectively our greenhouse is insulated. This R value issue is relevant to all the cover materials. So each cover material has its own number of insulation, which is called R value. If you can see, the double pane glasses has, even from the naming, it says that it has double layer of glass, and if you can see from the picture, it has double layer of glass, and there have some space in between. And this space is helping to keep the heat inside of the greenhouse. R value can be expressed as the temperature difference that will cause 1 unit of heat while going through the 1 unit of area over a period of time. It could be calculated with a formula presented to you in the slide. In the next slide, we can see how the number of panes of the glasses is affecting the R value of the cover materials as a glass. So we can see that single pane with 1/4 of the dime, and we know the dime is like 25 millimeters, which makes it's around 6 millimeter thickness. It gives us 0.9 R value. But while we look at the next lines, the double pane with 1/4 airspace in between, giving better result of R value. Double pane with half airspace. So if we have, in the previous one, if we have 6 millimeter space between two panes, two layers of glass, that gives us 169. If we have to divide 25 into 2, that gives us around 12.5 millimeter space between two layers. That gives us 2.04 R value. And if you can look at the below lines, even you can increase the number of panes and make them triple with the distance between them, which is 6 millimeter or 12 millimeter. And that definitely will affect the R value of the covered materials. So, by looking at this table, we can say that by increasing the number of glass layers, and putting some space in between, we can increase or affect the increase of the R value of the glazing material. But could we do this? Is it practical? Not, of course. This is presented to you, these numbers is presented to you in order to show you how that putting the spacing and putting different panes of glasses is affecting the results of R value. Of course, we cannot use much of the triple pane, but double pane is more widely used in the areas where they use glass greenhouses. Why the triple pane is not used commonly? Because it gives us very much weight, it's heavy, and you should have very solid construction in order to hold all of that weight. So widely it's spread only the double pane and single pane. But for those who has single pane today, they should know that even so the single pane greenhouses are cheap compared to double pane greenhouses, still during the running of the greenhouse you will spend a lot of money for the heating cost, which will affect the total cost of your production. While double pane almost reduces the cost of production by half if you, because it saves you some money on heating. Let us look what are the advantages and disadvantages of the glass as a material. Of course, the glass is very translucent material. It lets all the sunlight go through. It has high transmission of photosynthetic active radiation. We know that photosynthesis is very important for plants, and plants, the process of photosynthetic going in the plant is helping plant to grow better and produce better. So the glass has low transmission of UV light. We know that UV light and infrared rays is, in some cases, are very necessary for the plants to grow in a better way. It retains heat well, especially during the nights. Of course, in this case, we talk only about double pane glasses, because, as we said earlier, single pane glasses are not so effective in keeping heat during the night. We know, all of us, we met the glass, we know what glass is, and we know that it works well and it has durability and low maintenance costs. But at the same time, glass has its own disadvantages. It has low transmission prevention of UV rays and low thermal conductivity. So, you know, when we talk about creation of microclimate inside of the greenhouse, we should remember that microclimate inside of the greenhouse is definitely affected and in contact with climate outside of the greenhouse. And due to that, the selected cover material is playing not last but least role in organizing the microclimate inside the greenhouse. In case with glass, we can say that during the night, when temperature outside is colder than inside, the glass, if it is single pane glass, it loses much heat, while double pane is keeping heat much more better. So we already told that glass is much heavier than films. We can talk about films later, but it's heavier than the films available on the market, and also it's fragile and can be easily broken if some heavy stuff or if some parts of different iron pieces, etc., will be touching the glass. And in addition to all of that, it's very expensive material. So, while saying and talking about the glass, we can see that glass, as all the cover materials, has its own advantages and disadvantages, of course. Another kind, lately, the people, due to the development of the industry, were able to produce organic or acrylic glass, which also called the plexiglass. The plexiglass is a synthetic polymer material, and why it's called acrylic glass is because acryl, synthetic polymer material, is used for production of that cover material. Acrylic glass today available in the market with a bigger sheets, also with different widths. As you can see on the slide, they have very thick versions and also very with a high width, which is from 600 millimeters to 4,000 millimeters. Standard sheet size available on the market is from 2,000 to 2,000 by 3,000 millimeters in the market. Of course, organic or acrylic glass has own, again, advantages and disadvantages, and this is how it looks. Amongst advantages of acrylic glass is that it's having low weight compared to the ordinary glass, is non-toxic one while burning, and also it's impact resistant. If compare acrylic glass with an ordinary glass, we can see that it is very strong and letting us to use it much more better, and it has longer life. It's resistant to the natural factors, to the sun, rain, and other radiation, etc., and low and high temperatures. So that increases the length of the life of this material. It has important characteristics is that acrylic glass has high light transmission capacity, which is 92%. You know, one of the important characteristics of the cover materials is also their translucency. If we are not able to get enough sunlight for our plants, then our plants will grow much slower. They will give less yield in the end. And also, all the processes of development will be delayed. Disadvantage of acrylic glass is that if you use chemicals and cleaning solvents in order to clean the acrylic glass, they are unstable, and also they are unstable to the fire safety, and they are deformating over 80 degrees Celsius. The question may rise, we don't have 80 degrees Celsius outside, but in some cases, if there is some fire inside of the greenhouse happens, then the temperatures may rise, and this acrylic glass or plexiglass used in the greenhouses will be burned easily and will be destroyed. So, assuming the glass part of the cover materials, we could say that we now see that there are two types of glass, ordinary glass and acrylic glass, and both of them are widely used, but they have their own advantages and disadvantages, which is affecting the applicableness of this material. We also said that we have a second group, which is called polymeric materials. And polymeric materials is presented in our table here today. I was not able to find only one of them, which is a span bond, but I will tell you about span bond later. So polymeric materials is widely spread nowadays in different parts of the world. And specifically, in Azerbaijan, we also prefer to use polymeric materials as a cover materials. So if at Soviet time, most of the greenhouse growers or government who were dealing with the greenhouse production, they were mostly concentrated on the use of the glass as a cover material. These days, our farmers, growers in Azerbaijan and also worldwide, they prefer to use polymeric materials. But different polymeric materials has their own advantages and disadvantages too. So, what's the main benefit or advantage of polymeric materials is that some of them are very cheap, all of them are very light compared to glass, and mostly they are, we can adapt them to the construction, what we have, so they are characterized by the high quality characteristics and ease of installation. Amongst the first one, which is widely used and present today on the market, is a polyethylene film, which is most of you know and seen. It's widely used for the covering of the areas where they produce early vegetables like potatoes, or trying to grow different seedlings for the selling. And if we look at the polyethylene, it is not so strong. We can see that it comes apart. Under the sunlight, it changes its structure and easily destroyed. So compared to glass, it holds heat much better, but in different to that, it also holds much moisture inside, which is not good for the plants. Of course, in some periods of growing, the plants need moisture inside, and because they should not be over-dried. But we know that complex of temperature and moisture is affecting the development of pathogens and diseases, which is affecting our final yield. The advantage of polyethylene that it's light, it's relatively translucent, but if we can see, it goes up to 90%, which is lower than acrylic and the glass. If you remember, acrylic was 92 and the glass was close to 94%. Relatively strong and low cost. But as I said, disadvantage is low strength and rapid wear. So under the effect of different factors like sunlight, rain, heat and cold, change of temperature, it has short period of using, which is not in accordance with the requirements of our farmers and growers. On the slide, you can also see some pictures of polyethylene film and the greenhouses constructed and covered with polyethylene films. Another kind of cover material is reinforced plastic film. Here we have some examples of reinforced plastic films. I don't know if you can see the structure inside. You can see it has some netting inside, which is made from synthetic material called lafsan or dacron. That another kind of cover material which is helping us to have it for a longer time and also giving additional strength to the cover material. As you can see, this material with reinforced plastic film has two layers of plastic, and between that plastic we have squares, netted squares like net in between, which is helping the greenhouse cover material to stay longer and be stronger. But all of this netting reduces the translucency of the cover material. The reinforced plastic film has high density, which is from 120 to 100 grams per square meter. This high density is helping this cover material to stay strong and also last longer. It gives better and good insulation, keeps moisture inside and prevents plants from drying out. It's resistant to temperature change because in different climatic zones the temperatures are varied, and by using reinforced plastic film we can easily evade that effect of temperature change. If it's properly used, it can be lasted for 4-5 years, which is likely for our growers. But disadvantage of this material is that it's very costly. You need to pay much more than ordinary for ordinary cover material, and at the same time it has low level of translucency. Again, I would like to remind you that translucency is very important characteristics of the cover material. Another cover material used widely last 15-20 years is air bubbled film. We have here an example of air bubbled film, and you can also find these air bubbled films while you are buying different equipment, and they're wrapped into these films. But nowadays, due to development of the industry, factories is able to produce this material in a different size, with different widths and lengths. So, how this material is constructed? The air bubbled film has 3 layers of plastic. One top and bottom layer of plastic is an ordinary plastic, and the middle layer is made the way that the air bubbles are, the air filled in bubbles. So by putting under the pressure machine, you can have in the end the air bubbled material, cover material. It's very plastic. Due to its plasticity, it could be used at every construction. At the same time, it is very strong, but another disadvantage, the disadvantage is that it has low translucency character. But what are advantages? It's universal. It could be used, as I said, for any construction. It's letting it through all the useful ultraviolet light. Also, it's due to its plasticity and lightweight, it could be used widely all over the greenhouses, and also resistant to external environment and temperature changes. Next, material what I would like to present to you is polyvinyl chloride. Here we have a piece of polyvinyl chloride, which is, as you can see, I will show you a characteristic. You cannot break it. It's very strong. You can see under pressure. It is very strong, and this is one of the main characters why our growers are widely using this material nowadays. Polyvinyl chloride is characterized with high mechanical and impact resistant. Even if you are using any iron material, let me just use this pen, and trying to pull it, you can see it not comes through. And this tells us that how strong is this material. In addition to that, it passes through 82% of light. It's very durable and flexible against differences in temperatures, from -40 to +65 degrees. The price, of course, is higher than polyethylene, but for the quality, for the premium quality, we may pay much more compared to the polyethylene. Because we see the advantages. It prevents 95% of infrared rays and protects plants. It keeps heat accumulated during the day and at the night very well. Due to its characteristics, it could be used 5, 7, even 10 years. These days, some of the factories in Sumgayit in Azerbaijan started production of polyvinyl chloride and also the polyethylene. And the next one, we'll talk about that later, polycarbonate. But polyvinyl chloride is demonstrated to you, and if you can see, I have tried to make similar by using the pen. It just increases in length, but up to some certain level without being destroyed. The next material. So before going to polycarbonate, I should say that commonly used amongst our growers, in between all the presented materials, the most commonly used is the polyvinyl chloride. Growers of Zira based around Baku, also in Shamkir regions, they widely using polyvinyl chloride as a cover material. The next material is polycarbonate. Here we have pieces of polycarbonate to be presented to you. If you can see, polycarbonate, they are on the market. You can see the different kinds of polycarbonate. As you can see here, they have single layer or double layer. So the widely spread and more useful one is with double layer. So available on the market with the different sizes, it's 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter, 8 millimeter, and 10 millimeter. Polycarbonate. The millimeters are telling the distance between the two layers. 4, 6, and 8 is widely used for the agriculture and the horticulture, while 10 millimeter polycarbonate is mostly used for construction industry. If we look at the picture, polycarbonates may have different ingredients or additives in it, which helps to dissolve the sunlight if we have greenhouses specifically prepared for seedling production, or it helps to shade the greenhouse if we have crops or plants which does not need very much sunlight. So main characteristics of polycarbonate is that polycarbonate is very light, it's strong, it's made from plastic, and that affects the weight of this cover material. It diffuses light well, so the sunlight, it diffused all over the area, so the plants, young plants, will not be affected and burned. It's resistant to weather conditions, and on the market you may find it in many different sizes. It's very easy to put it together and also take it down. The R value of polycarbonate is, for the single wall polycarbonate, is 0.83, while for twin wall polycarbonate is 1.42. As you can see, the R value for polycarbonate is for twin layer polycarbonate with 1.42. And if you remember, we have talked about R value of twin pane glass. That was almost 1.5, close to 2. It's almost same. But the effectiveness of the polycarbonate is that polycarbonate, while proper using, could be used for more than 20-25 years. So it's long lasting, it pays, it returns its investment back and over the years of using. The advantage of polycarbonate is that it has maximum translucency capacity. So amongst all the cover materials, the polycarbonate has a maximum and the highest translucency numbers. So it's resistant to mechanical damage. To its plasticity, you can give it any shape. You can use different constructions. As we said in the beginning, there are different types of construction, and polycarbonate is a material that can easily be put together due to its plasticity. And it could be used with a service life up to 20 years. Of course, polycarbonate has its own disadvantages also. And disadvantage is that it is not resistant to open fire and relatively high price. These days, different kinds of polycarbonate is expensive. So almost like 3-4 years ago, 1 square meter of polycarbonate were costing around $25. But in the long run, while you are using it for the, as we said, for the 20-25 years, it pays itself out. Another cover material used and created by the factories or by the producers for our growers in order to meet the demand of our growers is the non-woven materials. They are synthetic. Unfortunately, I was not able to find and bring it here to demonstrate you, but it will be also a kind of joke. The material looks like your face masks today. The face mask material is reminding us the non-woolen materials. Some of them is span-boned, Lutrasil, Agril, Bioform, etc. And they are very light. They are able to protect plants from frost and overheating, could be used for different, at different locations. And one constructural feature is that this materials is put over, directly over the plants and helping to absorb the moisture and also keeps heat during the night and could be also used as a shading material. Spanbond is widely available these days, especially it's used in the northern countries while keeping heat in for the plants. Another non-woven material, this is a picture how this greenhouse will be looked when it's covered from inside with non-woven material Spanbond. You see, the outside structure is covered with another cover material, most probably is polyvinyl chloride, but the inside is covered with Spanbond, which holds the heat, because as you can see, the greenhouse is not so high, and they have the heating lines, and they need to keep, the growers need to keep they need to hold the heat inside the greenhouse. I already told you about advantages of Spanbond. I will not repeat this again. Another non-woven material is Lutrasil. It has same characteristics as Spanbond, also used directly. It could be used directly on the plants, over the plants, in order to keep the heat and moisture. This is all what I should say about the cover materials for today. But in order to use more effectively the heat and light in the greenhouses, I have listed for you some tips which is very important for you to know. First, by using black pots for your plants, you can attract the sunlight. And by attracting the sunlight, you will have heat around the roots of your plants, which will help the plant to grow better. Another one, avoid using dark colors for anything other than black pots, because these other black surfaces inside of the greenhouse, also other black construction materials inside the greenhouse, they will absorb the heat and light, and also will reflect, may reflect it, and that will reduce the necessary amount of heat for your plants, which will affect the growth of your plants. Caulking is important to energy efficiency, because, you know, while telling about different cover materials, I told that some of them has plasticity, some of them easy able to put together and take down, but during the growing season, there are some cracks, there are some spaces in the construction which should be properly fit and closed in order to reduce the energy loss and be efficient in while growing your plants. The maintenance of the cover materials is very important, because by maintaining properly, in a proper way, your cover materials, you will give them additional strength and increase the length of life. So in order to maintain it properly, you need to choose proper solvents for cleaning. You know, over the time, plastic polymeric materials are becoming yellow. They're yellowing, and that affects the translucency of these materials. So by cleaning them properly, or by changing them when it's necessary on time, you may increase the translucency of your cover materials. The useful life of plastic films depend on specific plastics purchased. So you need to choose exactly plastic which is useful and applicable for your area and for your plant, for your heating source. because all of that affecting the kinds of cover materials you need to use. So this is basically the end of my presentation lecture today, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
We don't have any questions now, but
Okay, after, later. So, as our friends told us, there are no questions available yet, and if there will be online questions and requests, we will be able to answer to those questions. So, in the end, I would like to congratulate you with the coming holiday of Nowruz. Stay safe, wash hands, and take care about yourself and the people around you. See you soon.